isn't too fair saying to this guy, like, can I just buy a bottle of Coke and use your toilet? Because otherwise there's going to be fucking real world
ending
consequences.
badly.
Exactly. Like,
Do you have
oh shit, did we just get... Hello, welcome to Game of Nodes, the weekly podcast from independent validator teams on the Cosmos. And if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So I should have guessed that was going to happen when I was asked to describe whether I was hungover on Sunday morning when I had to do a long cycle across the French and Swiss Alps. So this week, we've got mercifully little drama per second. So unless some happens during this podcast, we've got a few things we want to talk about. A couple of testnet bits. I think that is about it. We've got some guests coming up on future shows, but we won't spoil who there's going to be. And we, of course, got my friend and colleague Callum on tonight's show, joining us from the Bed Knobs and Broomsticks bread. Bed Knobs and Broomsticks bread. Bed Knobs and Broomsticks bed. That's a bit of a tongue twister. Yeah, genuinely, is that your bed? Because it is a ridiculous bed.
Yeah, it is. It is my bed.
And why are you coming to us from Marie Antoinette or something, from the Shay Long as the peasants burn down the town nearby? What's going on here?
Well, Kraken just listed Juno, so I'm a very rich man now. So gotta.
It has gone up by.
I'm not rich. Oh no, it's pumped like 15%.
15% already. Holy shit.
16,
when I saw it, it was like 10 pence. And I was like, 10 pence per Juno. We're in business.
What the fuck is a pence?
I don't know.
Oh,
a pence is like a cent.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, in today's exchange rate, it's probably pretty damn close. I'm not going to lie.
Bowling.
Everything's up pairs across the board. 15, 16, 17%.
Yeah.
It's a good news day today for the price of Juno, and that news came out. I think earlier I did a stream with our dear eccentric friend Don Kryptonium, and I think the news came out while we were on the stream, and we literally didn't notice.
Yeah. All the things you came back, saw my message, and you were like, "Wait, this makes my life so much easier."
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, there's been so much talk about fiat off ramps and stuff on Juno, and that's just like fucking done. It's just cracking. And for all, well, I don't know actually. I don't know if I'm the only validator users. Their business stuff is very easy to use in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. So yeah, we're all in the same. They were just. We tried a couple of other providers, and they were like really slow and unresponsive. And Kraken, we just like provided our company details, registration, all that kind of shit, and they were just like, bam, yeah.
I think you'll recall when I was trying to make my Binance account, and I was pulling my hair out for 2 weeks trying to bloody.
Was it strategically pulled out in order to make the kind of mohawk go?
Yeah, the side sloping mohawk.
The side sloping.
Is it technically a Mohican? No. It's a mohawk, isn't it? That's a mohawk. The Mohican's the.
Look at that!
Wow.
Mohican would be like, yeah.
It's like a people, right?
Yeah, the Mohican's the big one, isn't it? This is a mohawk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, answer on a postcard: is that a mohawk?
Literally a comb over.
I mean, yeah, I guess kind of. I mean, in the sense that it's literally combed over. I don't know. I've never seen your head from above, Null. So. It's not on Google Earth either. So, actually, okay, I'm not going to say that. That was weird. I was about to say, did you know a lot of roundabouts, when viewed from above, are actually elliptical shaped, not round? That kind of blew my mind.
And you stopped yourself, and then you continued.
Yeah, then you just said it anyway.
I just it's obvious when you think about why. It's because a lot of them were built some time ago are on a slope, and so the people that built it didn't build it straight. So probably
also,
only
it's not round. I've seen some look like a peanut.
Some like a triangle. Yeah, they all come in different shapes and sizes.
There's a famous one in a market town in Cheshire where it's two that are kind of close enough that they screw up each other's axis of gravity, but they're not so close that they're just one compound double roundabout. So all that happens is all these cars arrive in the center of this actually quite small town village, and then they just like, oh shit, I'd have no idea how to drive through this double star shaped semi roundabout situation. And everybody just kind of grinds to a halt, and there's a massive traffic jam there 24/7. It's amazing.
That just reminds me of is it in Milton Keynes where there's the roundabout with 8 mini roundabouts around it? It's so you can Google image it. It's the only interesting thing about Milton Keynes, by the way. So there we go.
There you go. There's a lot of good architectural facts about Milton Keynes. My favorite one is the one about the the central train station.
No, I've never stepped foot in Milton Keynes.
So
I don't want to.
It has an Easter egg, right? Which is that the street leading up to the train station is on a ley line leading to a stone circle, which is a reference for the summer solstice. So the sun rises on the morning of the summer solstice in Milton Keynes and illuminates the front of the glass front of the train station. It comes up through the glass window. So a little pagan temple just like casually slotted in by the architects of Milton Keynes, one of the weirdest, that's my polite way of saying not particularly nice place in the UK. We need to get Tom on here properly. We need to bully him on so that because we've obviously met face to face, and obviously my feelings on Reading are a matter of record. But he's a lovely man from Reading, so it just goes to show you the place might suck, but the people are lovely.
There you go.
That's my thought on that.
I had to Google the difference between a Mohawk and a Mohican. So that difference that exists.
There's the Nightmare Roundabout. That's the one I was talking about. So you have like about 5 different mini roundabouts to get onto the main one.
Yeah,
because it's like a coming together of like 6 different roads. Yeah. Over-engineer a problem, guys.
This is an amazing disaster of utopian architectural practices of the mid-20th century, isn't it? Look at that.
And also, oh my god, how many words did you just say that I don't understand?
Well, there was a whole period, wasn't there, where they were trying to build model towns, like ideal towns, and they didn't get very far.
Milton Keynes is definitely one of them. Yeah, because it's just one massive housing estate.
It's one of the towns of the world.
That's a huge overestimation of human intelligence, right there.
Well, the saying Welling Garden City is quite green, but a bit weird, and also they only built like a quarter of it, and then they kind of gave up. I think something like that.
Most UK development projects can be explained by that, though. It's like, we just ran out of money and then we stopped.
There is a little bit of that. I have to say, being on the continent like last week in a country, France, that has higher taxation and use it or lose it attitude, as far as I gather, to public infrastructure. You just be like in the middle of nowhere, and there'd just be a bunch of lads resurfacing a road that had some potholes because they're just like, "Wow, we got the money, we got to use the money. We're just going to resurface this." And you're just like this is in the middle of nowhere. That like I went up one road and it was to a hamlet. There were 2 houses in the hamlet, and then the road kept going, and you could literally avoid the whole thing. So there was a whole motorway that meant it wasn't necessary. I didn't see a single car in like 45 minutes, and yet the road was pristine, brand new. It had been resurfaced obviously within the last 12 months. I was just like, in almost any other country, this would have just been a dirt track by now.
Yeah, it would be gravel, like that was once a paved road.
I feel like we've broken null with this roundabout.
I think this is like the how you get through it.
If you want to go from
Mm-hmm. That's wrong though. Look, that green line in the lower left or lower right is going the opposite way. Oh wait, no, it's not.
No, it's not. So how I've been told you treat it is you go one roundabout at a time, and you treat the mini roundabout as your entry onto the next. So if you have done roundabouts before, you just break it down. Although I imagine it's still hellish, and I wouldn't want to drive across it.
Yeah, so you got to keep left on the little ones, and then.
Well, because it swaps directions. That was the weird trivia about it. The middle one is going a different direction to the so that of course you don't just slam into someone.
Yeah,
that's navigatable. I reckon
imagine you landed on that on your driving test. You'd just be like, well, I'm
oh,
failing.
Well, I'll go again and hope they don't give me the route with it.
Yeah, you just be like, well, this is obviously impossible, and I failed my driving test. So anyway, thanks for playing,
I can just imagine people stuck in the middle. Just how the fuck do I get
forever
off?
going around,
looking for an
run
exit.
out of fuel and just ditch it in the middle.
Yeah,
get a tow truck. I can't figure it out.
Welcome.
I saw a picture on Twitter the other day of somebody shilling Rhino usurper, and they had a bunch of pictures of some quite cool looking racks and stuff, and I was like,
that's our rack.
Are those actually your racks, or were they stock photos of racks?
No, you can do a search. Those are our racks.
Those are your racks.
Yep.
Oh wow,
we're legit.
Got your racks out for the lads.
Yeah, you could.
Oh my God.
Sorry,
we hang a rack pics out all the time. Yeah.
Also had a wireframe Rhino, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, that's on the website.
It was shilling the shit out of you. Was that that's who? Knots.
That's Knots.
So,
yep.
Do you work with Knots, right? In some fashion.
Yeah, we did. We started January, sometime earlier this year. Yeah.
Where'd you get that Cisco stuff? Off the back of a truck, real cheap.
Sort of. That's good hardware though. So we're actually that picture has like it's actually old. There's only 8 servers in there. We have 10, and actually we're just getting ready to split this up into 2 DCs. So we're going to move it to 2 separate data centers. We're going to try to cut the bill down. Actually, the bill will be overall higher, but it'll be split between 2 DCs, and then we're going to put 2 Horcrux nodes, 1 in each DC. They're about 30 minutes from each other. I mean, if the whole region gets wiped out, then they're gone. But assuming that doesn't happen, at least they're on different power grids and they're on, different internet lines and things like that. So we're starting to realize that one giant rack of stuff is probably not the best idea. So it's cool.
Yeah, not if it's all in the one place.
No, it doesn't really help when you have that much going down at one time. I mean, we're getting around that with Horcrux, but when you still have that much stuff in one spot, it's not great. Plus, they like private DCs like this. They still have maintenance windows. So, like for instance, we know we have a 30-minute outage coming up at like 3 a.m. on August 1st, and getting around that is a real pain for nodes that aren't signing 2 of 3 type of thing. So it just becomes kind of a pain. So having that be on 2 separate DCs allows us at least to make sure that we still have our own nodes running somewhere type of thing.
So what you're going to like split your gear?
Yeah.
Why not have your nodes in 2 separate DCs, but have your signing raft like on something that's more available, like DigitalOcean or AWS or something?
I wouldn't say that those are more available, honestly. But we've had like big AWS outages. We've had Linode outages. I've had OVH fall off. Like everybody's have Hetzner outages, things like that, even for small periods. But they're a little bit, I don't know. They're probably.
But you could
maybe
like
1 more 9.
If you have like a 2 of 3 raft, you could just distribute it between like Linode, DigitalOcean, and AWS.
That's what I have right now. I have one at Cogent, one at AWS, and one at OVH, all east, all like within a couple 100 miles geographically, and then those nodes are also in the east. And so I like to bring one of those more into house. And so if I'm going to move, I don't have to move the signing nodes really. I mean, I can.
So you want them like so when you're putting them with your I mean, it makes sense to have one with your colos anyway because you're close to your nodes, but also if those nodes go out, then you've still got. So you're going to have one at each colo and then one in the wild. Is that
That's the idea. Yeah. Right now we have one in the colo and 2 in the wild, and we'll move it from 2 to 1. And if it doesn't really matter, all 3 can be in the wild. It's just like then I know at least like and I can put a priority on a RAF node now, so I can have that close to the node. So if it fails over far, and it might miss blocks because of latency, but at least if it's close, then it's at least next to maybe one of the primary nodes type of idea.
You'll definitely get a better hit rate if they're like in the same colo.
Even right now, across 3 different providers regionally, it's like 20 milliseconds a piece, like in between each of those, which is totally fast enough. Like that's fine. Like once you get like 100, 150, like then you start, it gets a little bit crazy, but anyway, Yeah, that's our stuff. The only issue with having your own hardware is that it ages. So some of that stuff is
hard drive age real fast.
NVMe's age and all the. We just bought like a bunch of SSDs for a couple big raids and things like that, which are fine. But then the CPU's age and all these big enterprise class machines, what they build for width, they don't build for single core. So now that all the block times are coming down on all these chains, like the Kujiras of the world, and everybody wants a 1 second block time, all this hardware that we have is struggling. So that's the real challenge. Is like I can't add any more to it. Like it doesn't matter how many cores I give, it doesn't make a difference. It comes down to some sort of single core structure, and these single cores are okay, but they're not great. So when you get into that situation, then I'm looking at building more and that type of thing. So
when you cost in that kind of wear and tear, like what is if you don't mind me asking, what is the price differential on running that kind of infra versus, I mean, obviously the obvious thing to ask is bare metal, but also, kind of, I guess in my head, like maybe something like DigitalOcean is quite often lower cost than something like AWS, but with fewer guarantees, maybe.
I think that for, overall, it all depends on what you pick the hardware up at, right? So this stuff that we have is between 2016 to 2019 gen, so it's a few years old. But they're all like dual CPU. All those machines have between 512 and a terabyte of RAM each. And they all have between 36 and 72 threads. So that's two 36 core machines, or two 16 core 32 thread CPUs in one box. So they're very wide. And with a terabyte of RAM, you can, and fast disks, you can run a ton of nodes. Like you can run a lot of things that even have plenty of threads on it. But again, it goes back to single core. So there's a lot of that hardware available. And we do a lot of upgrades and that type of stuff and everything else, and like try to keep it somewhat, we've had very little downtime within the stuff that we've had. All our issues have been more network structure because we run some pretty complicated security VLANs and VRFs and things like that in the Cisco side. So that's the only thing that we've had, issues with. But away from that, it's pretty cheap to be able to run. So I think it's the only issue with that is that it's also
those RAM numbers. Those RAM numbers are no fucking joke. Like
they're no joke.
To get that kind of performance, to get a fucking terabyte of RAM on a cloud provider.
You can't get that stuff, right? But again, none of the stuff that we run uses that, right? So it's only width, which means how many of those chains can I run? How many separate data stores or drives do I have? Blah blah blah. And that mix is that stuff is a mix of vSphere that we use and also bare metal. So depending on what we're using, it's mixed, because the vSphere stuff we like to use for specific things that we can easily move across. And I want to have something that's running and move that node somewhere else and things like that. And again, there's a lot of NVMe back stuff in there, so which is plenty fast. But again, it just depends on what the right use of that stuff is. So the only issue with that is that you sorry, I'm going to cut you off. But the only issue with that, like I said, is like I also have a bunch of AX101s at Hetzner, right? And those are month by month. Once that 5950 is no longer the fastest thing, I say goodbye. I launch another one within 10 minutes, and that's their issue, right? But now I got this asset that's I gotta, figure out what I'm doing with and I'm paying for, and those types of things. So it's a balance of ownership.
Yeah, we definitely considered building our own, but like the types of servers we wanted to get new were going to be like 20 grand a piece. And when you add them up, like to say 2 lots of 3 in like 2 different data centers, you're like, 120 grand. And then the like monthly bills in Australia for bandwidth are fucking insane. Like,
are they?
Well, it came down to that we can buy the hardware that we want. We can rent the hardware that we want for less than what it costs to host it in Australia. So that's ultimately the way we ended up having to go.
I'm guessing like a fraction. It must be like if you're using, I don't know if you're using Hetzner or OVH or who, but it must be like a tiny fraction of the cost of purchase.
Hetzner is so cheap.
Our most of our nodes are on OVH, right?
Yeah.
So there's OVH Australia, which I'm sure is more expensive than fucking OVH anywhere else.
Mhm.
But so just to host like a 1U, and we would have to have a 2U, but to host a 1U in like the cheapest one I could find in Australia was going to cost like, I think it was close to $200 just for hosting that at an IP address, right?
Mhm.
But that's only with like a 300 megabit connection shared.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't really going to work, because for $200 I can get similarly spec'd hardware plus all of the hosting fees in Australia for
Mhm.
one machine. So and that's on, in some instances, like a 10 gig connection. I have not had any bandwidth issues whatsoever. The latencies are better because they're over in Europe.
Right.
So yeah, it's been good for me. If you look at the OVH pricing for the Australian nodes, they're more than everywhere else. So there's like specific nodes that say APAC, which is Asia Pacific, next to them. They're the only ones in all of the servers that have like different pricing for Australian ones. Well, in the OVH lot, there's no like OVH France costs more than APAC than OVH Germany. It's just all of the OVH stuff is the same except for the Australian ones, which has got APAC next to it because it's so fucking expensive over here.
Although Hetzner is more expensive in Finland than it is in Germany.
No, it's the opposite of that, isn't it? Isn't it expensive in Germany? More expensive in Germany than it's
Yeah, I
Finland?
thought Helsinki was cheaper. Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
maybe I've got it asked.
Yeah.
But this is like why everybody, like, there's the joke about if Hetzner went down, everybody be fucked, right?
All these chains would stop.
The music stops.
Seriously,
and
there's no joke.
Come back.
It's no joke. Like but it's such a. I don't know. I mean, we've seen some videos of like their process and everything else, but they deliver at such a low cost. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, but you do. I mean, this is the thing though that makes me kind of, if and when we move fully to Horcrux, then I think we'll consider running more stuff on Hetzner. But
yeah,
I've had like my bare metal days ended with them on hard drive failures and moving to EC2 back in 2012, 2013, and I've not looked back. And I have, touch wood, never had a major EC2 incident in all the years I've been using it. That has been Amazon's fault. Had a VPC disconnect caused by them screwing up the entire European zone, all VPC connections for about 10 minutes, and that really fucked things up for a little bit. But I mean, when you got 13 hours to play with, in Cosmos, it's such a different calculation,
Right. I do think that I mean, obviously we're all trying to work towards disposable nodes. So I think our goal is to, I mean, we want to have our own, part of our, just how we deliver is we want to have our own machinery and our own DCs. I think that's something we like to have ownership of. And I mean, we have stuff in Hetzner as well, but I don't want to be, if 80% of the chain stop because Hetzner goes down, I don't want to be in that number. I want to be on the other side of that number. And so I think we're all moving kind of towards remote signing that can be very portable and secure, and the other nodes are disposable. And whether that's at some of these providers or whether that's on Akash or whether that is, anywhere else, I think that's kind of what we're all working towards. Right. So this idea of like sentries and validators and all these, like all that's gone, like that's all gone. So I was trying to get to a point where the core is very secure and the nodes are disposable. And that might be 3 nodes. It might be 10. It might be whatever it is. I don't really care. But so I think we're all kind of closely working towards that same idea.
Yeah, I think at the moment my big concern is basically how to get we're very slowly moving in the direction of Horcrux now, but how we get that smoothly set up in terms of the signers and where, and in a cost-effective way, because I think we have the problem that, especially for the bear market stuff, the TMKMS stuff has basically resulted in us, because we were running full Sentry architecture before, we basically thirded the amount of boxes that we've got, essentially, because we're running one stacked remote signer with some additional DR around it. So we've got about 1/3 of the boxes in prod that we did 3 months ago, like when Prop 16 happened, let's say. And the concern about Horcruxes would be going back to a raft of signers plus 2 to 3 per network, probably, because of the way we run. And that, I think, that feels like a step backwards, unless we were to do something quite radical, like take all of the sentries off onto bare metal, and just treat the bare metal. So this is what I'm currently thinking now, is to go back and basically write a bunch of Terraform to handle scripting up big Hetzner boxes, like big fucking Hetzner boxes, and then be running sort of 3 to 6 to 9, maybe Hetzner and another bare metal provider, where all the Terraform is going to do is bring up a set of boxes, connect, essentially open the correct ports to the signer, and then say, okay, I'm going to install all my upgrades and Docker, and then I'm fucking done.
Right.
And then it's over to you lads to then provision that with the correct the correct containers. And with doing some of the Akash stuff that we did when we were evaluating running on Akash, we obviously used Tom's Omnibus quite a bit. And I kind of think that might be a good middle ground, is basically pulling in containers from Omnibus that sync very quickly, because they're synced from the snapshot the day before, and kind of put those together as behind a reverse proxy, and then basically have that as running on these absolutely stacked bare metal servers.
Right.
That maybe is a way of actually potentially even increasing our performance while keeping costs down, and then just have some absolutely chunky nodes running Horcrux, because that was the confusing thing to me, because we had Schultz was talking about the performance and stuff in a different thread, and it's like Horcrux is not that big a program, it's not that heavyweight, so I'm not sure where the performance hit was coming, like what the problem was. That it feels like it should run on a T3 micro or something on AWS.
Yeah, my notes haven't followed that. Sorry, no.
Well, isn't it the lead has to talk to all of the... So I think Schultz was running like multiple networks on the same rafts, but the lead, I think if you get a bunch of networks on the same lead node, then they have to talk to all the other nodes and coordinate. And I think you end up with like a situation where it's quite a lot of traffic to process.
Yeah, and my stuff, like I have on the set that I have 5 separate rafts going. And so that lead does move around, and I only have a couple of those where I'm trying to push it to a primary. But I didn't see the same amount of usage that Schultz did. So I'm not sure what that was, or maybe it's fighting with something or something else. But
could have been configuration too. Maybe
maybe I don't know. Yeah. So are we going to talk about that comment, or are we going to let that one go?
Can neither confirm or deny. I'll leave it. The imagination can do much more.
The issue is that this is an audio podcast, so now you have to read it out to everybody who's listening and not watching. What was the comment that came up from the viewers?
So it was Soity Studio saying Cameron's a bit of a man who enjoys handcuffs, and I'm just going to say that I can't remember who it was that said in horror that if you show something, it's a lot less than letting the imagination play out. So I'm just going to say no comment and let people's imaginations run wild, because that is the true terror here. So no comment.
Also, no king shaming, man. It's 2022.
Yeah. No,
right.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's no comment.
That's right.
And just saying.
Who knows? Who knows what these have seen?
Who knows what these pipes have seen?
There's something about the structure of that sentence that did not sit well with me.
Callum's pipe, though.
Thank you, Neil.
There we go.
Also, no, where are you? You look like you're in the break room of like
he's
like a late 90s
cell.
warehouse or something.
No, he's either in a holding cell or he's in like the isolation room of like a high school in like England.
Yeah, it has the vibe of like an adult education center. I think further education.
Last time I was here, you were like saying it looked like a mental ward or some shit.
No, I said it looked like the conjugal visit room of a women's prison.
Frey, you know the series in the UK where it's educating, they just go in different schools in all the different parts of the UK on Channel 4. Basically, there's just documentaries that just go into schools in the UK and just film for like a year. This reminds me of like those schools where they set up clearly because you can get quite a lot of content in the isolation booths at school. Where bad students just go sit. Just remind me like Null is sat in one of those booths in like the isolation room at school, and just there's gonna be a teacher that comes through the door in a second.
room. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah. So what your schools didn't have it, so you would just go and
I think sometimes it's not obvious that there is that big an age gap between us, but like, you know, I may as well have gone to school with Mary fucking Poppins apparently, because
So, Callum, I just have to say, mate, what you just described sounded like a description of a person who should be going to jail. Is that people are going into schools and filming children in isolation rooms?
yeah. No, that's just the UK schooling system. I don't know. Yeah. So
to be fair, the UK schooling system is pretty fucked at the moment. They basically sold it all off to private companies
called academies. So like, you could sell off pretty much most of the school to a private company.
I think literally it's some nut statistic, like 98% of secondary schools in the UK are now owned essentially by private companies, and they get to part set the curriculum. And some of those private companies are just like essentially aristocrats who have put together a company, and they literally just teach like whatever the fuck they feel like. And they're just like, oh yeah, and all of these lords and ladies were just like totally great, you know, totally great, 100% awesome. Let's not mention the slave owning. I mean, I'm okay. There's a little bit of exaggeration.
Yeah,
it's not that they have a rough curriculum, but they can fuck around with it.
Yeah, they can influence it. Yeah,
I've seen some of because I've got some friends who are teachers, and I've seen like what they teach, and the teachers are literally like, as in they show you it, and they're like, look at this compared to what we were taught, and you're like, holy fuck, this country is fucked, like fucked, like 12 years of Tory rule, and it literally is like. And to be fair, it was Labour that did that actually. So, you know, just fucking neoliberals, man. Just like sell off the schools, just sell off the schools for profit. Why the fuck not? What's the worst thing that can happen? Yeah, okay, like quite a bad thing actually, lads, because you end up teaching fucking even
the status
worse
quo maintains.
Like, it was bad enough when I was at school where the only thing you learned about prohibition. That was all of your American history. You might have done the French Revolution because they are just across the channel, and then you did the Nazis. You did Nazis over and over and over and over and over and over again, but with weirdly little moral judgment, just lots of facts. And you're kind of like, I feel like we should be mainly talking about how in every video game I play, they're the bad guys, and for a reason, because they were fucking bad, rather than just being like, and what happened in 1937 in November, and you're like, this is like
like the lead up of like post World War I Germany to like
exactly,
World War II
and all of these weird facts where you're just like, and which politician said that we need to squeeze Germany into like a lemon until the pips squeak, and you're just like, these are not useful facts for understanding how genocide happened, which is really the top line thing we should be trying to learn from this history.
Yeah, but don't Google what Churchill did in India, by the way. Don't Google it. Don't Google it. He's great. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
And China and Japan may as well not have had any history, because fuck it, we're not going to teach it. Yeah, we're not going to teach it. African history? No, they just
they only existed when we went over there. You know,
you might literally you might get one module on the Scramble for Africa, which is
the Zulu or the Boer War, and the only stuff the Boer War came up to was when the NHS stopped providing optical and dentistry stuff for free. That was the level of African history in my GCSE history.
Yeah, I remember it just started with the groundnut thing, because they groundnuts and palm oil, right? Because they needed oil for machinery to help the working class they were oppressing back home, who were building their engines of war. They were like, we need more oil, palm oil. Suddenly we have a use for Africa. Let's just occupy the whole thing. The other use they had for Africa, of course, besides enslaving the population and generally terrorizing them for like 200 years. Anyway, British history, not great.
There's some relationship between Britain and Australia, right? You guys want to talk about that here?
Australia has a really interesting history, which I think now we'll be able to.
I'm glad you brought up Africa and and India, but you failed to bring up Australia. I don't know why you would do that.
We literally learned nothing about Australia either. We just go like, ooh.
They just ignore that whole thing.
It's kind of like mentioned, like, oh, we may have shipped off some convicts.
Yeah,
and those guys, there were some real bad apples, because those guys, they were quite racist, and then they were very nasty to the Aboriginals, and real bad apples. That's why we shipped them off, because we weren't racist. We were busy civilizing a bunch of places, and that was very unracist. We were building bridges, which is it's like the opposite of racism, really. That's like,
the good guys.
How could that possibly be racist? And you're just like, awesome history. Thanks, bud.
Yeah.
Is it time for lunch? Yeah.
It's fun. And then at some point you go to university or whatever, and they're just like, oh yeah, all that history you learned, it was actually quite bad, and you're like, I did have that feeling that there was another side to the story.
Yeah. So to put it in perspective, I finished school, as in pre-university education, 4 years ago. So yeah, there we go. That's when I finished with the UK education system.
Yeah, well, sure, we're convicts, but he's fucked up.
There you go.
Sure,
you let us out at the end. At the end, you're like, okay, so you've done we sent you on a boat. Half of you all died coming over here. We put you in a box for like 20 minutes, and okay, now have some land in a country full of awesome resources and sell it to everyone else.
Sunshine.
The real punishment is having to pay more. The real punishment is having to pay more for OVH boxes. That was the real punishment.
It's a really long play. It's a really long play for you not to be able to have.
It's like the Domino's meme. It's the Domino's meme where it's sending convicts to Australia. Null struggling to rent boxes.
A real punishment.
That's the one.
A real punishment for the convicts would have been to make them fucking stay in England and drink warm beer for the next 200 years.
Well, a lot of there's an argument that goes, a lot of the reason that people, so one of the many things that resulted in so many people getting transported was a massive crackdown on the rules about common land, and especially poaching. Like poaching became a very, very common reason to get deported, I gather, which was largely about essentially trying to deny. Well, there is a historical argument that goes something like early stage capitalists and also the ruling class who were trying to profit off of the new industry were trying to not only break the back of labor that had had quite a good time after the Black Death, in terms of like trying to renegotiate the relationship between landowners and serfs. Essentially, the end of serfdom was the end of the Black Death, right? Because there were so few people, they said, well, we're not going to accept the system anymore, you got to pay us. And there's a kind of an argument that goes, okay, well, people also used to forage for a lot of their living, so they didn't have to be reliant on a wage to live fully. And like by breaking people fully into relying on a wage to live, that's like the ultimate subjugation into modern capitalism. And the thing that was stopping that was like being able to hunt, basically, on common land, or grow stuff on common land, foraging wood and stuff. So hence poaching laws becoming more extreme, and then sending people to Australia. So yeah, but that's also why in English folklore there's so many popular folk songs where the heroes are poachers, because there's a kind of there's like a folk memory of how important that was to everyday life and survival, and how sad it was when it went, I guess. Or maybe we just romanticize all the things that have finished in the past. I don't know.
What does all this have to do with Juno on Kraken?
Well, I was going to say, should we move on to talk about the Kraken listing?
Okay, shall we?
Well, hang on.
I thought that somehow we're going to come back to that, and that's how Juno ended up on Kraken.
Before we get sidetracked, that still wasn't really finished.
before
we were having. So, Usurper, I just want to know. So, where do you have your Say node now? Say node, because you got quite good uptime at the moment on Say.
My Say node is at Hetzner, because our current stuff that's there is not. The stuff in the colo is not fast enough for it. So same thing with my Evos node and my Say nodes.
So are you signing locally on those, or are you remote signing?
No, I'm signing locally on both those. So that will both. I'm building new machines for the new colo that we're standing up, and so those will eventually move back. But for right now, those are remote, because I don't own hardware fast enough to do that.
Yeah. So what is Say's like config? Isn't it a bunch of validators and quite fast blocks? Is Say the one that's trying to push like 500 validators that I saw? I'm not too clued up on it.
No,
I think they're intentionally keeping it pretty tight, right?
They are. Yeah, I think they're trying to pull. Well, originally they were trying to pull 500 like half-second blocks. That was kind of like where they started. I'm not sure what it was set to initially, or what they're trying to be able to do with that. Right now, I think I don't know. You're probably looking at it, but I think it's like maybe a second or 0.8 seconds, something like that.
0.9 is the block time.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So they're trying to get that.
Oh, it's
really,
1.3 now.
I
Isn't
think
it
that.
because
now it's
ahead.
back.
you guys.
Fuck, it's all over the place.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, isn't that because they're trying to do on-chain order books or something, right? Is that
They are.
Say or
That's
yeah,
correct. Yeah. They want fast closure on those types of orders and things like that. So I think that's the goal. And honestly, we talked about this I think a few weeks ago, but even from the team, like they're okay with block misses, and like their idea is like even if you're missing a third of blocks, that means we should be pushing faster. Like we want to be able to see where this can go, which is very different from how we've traditionally approached a 6-second block, and if I miss one, like you're asking questions in the mirror, right?
A tungsten rod gets dispatched from space if you validate on Penumbra Zone.
You know about the rods from God? People always think I'm crazy.
I love the Penumbra Zone, and also rods from gods is amazing. Yeah,
people always think I'm crazy when I say rods from God, and I have to like reference the whole that was an orbital weapon system thing.
Yeah, that was written about. Yeah, they were really trying to. Yeah, no, that. Yeah,
okay.
I thought good.
If you don't want plot spoilers for the new Top Gun film, put your fingers in your ears now, right? There are some. Right, okay, it's time for a little moment here. Aside from the bit where the Navy, for some reason, is testing a Mark 10 spy plane, which obviously wouldn't happen because, it would be like the Air Force. And why would the Navy have a spy plane that takes off on the land? And why would they be supplying a test pilot? It would be Lockheed or whoever the primary contractor is would be using they would be using their test pilot. It would be not Maverick, and it would also be a guy who's reliable, not a guy whose call sign is Maverick. It would be somebody who is very calm, like a test pilot maybe, who's not going to do something dumb and blow up a fucking plane, and whatever. Anyway, that bit's not the important bit. The important bit is the entire plot has at least one major glaring hole. One of the major glaring holes is that they fire Tomahawk missiles at an airfield, which shows they know where this airfield is. And they're like, oh, the reason we can't just use these is because we can't just like fly a plane over and bomb this thing is because there's all these anti-aircraft missiles. And it's like, well, you know where the airfield is and you just blew that up with Tomahawk cruise missiles. So why don't you just blow up the SAM sites? But more than all of that, they have a Mark 10 spy plane and they don't have rods from God. And you're just like, literally, this entire mission is predicated on the idea that you cannot just drop a tungsten rod into this like hard to find place and blow it up, and like clearly you would just use rods from God. I was literally watching the whole Top Gun thing, being like, just rods from God. Like they're like,
I can't enjoy this.
How do we solve this, Maverick? How do we possibly blow this thing up? And I'm like, rods from God. Maverick,
you know where my suspension of disbelief ends. The rods from the God. That's it. The movie.
That's it.
Checked out after that. That's it. No fun. 0 out of 10.
I put my beer down. I got up and left. I was like, I'm out. I don't know how the movie ended. Yeah.
All right. So again, back to our fucking thing we were talking about. It's like herding fucking cats, man. Back to the thing we were talking about. So I have a big burning question with these fast blocks, right? So what happens to all the history? Because this is going to add up super quick. And interesting fun fact, Notional helped Sai with their code, I think, to make those blocks happen super fast. But what's going to happen with the history here? Like, no one's going to keep history from a bloody 1 second block time after 6 months. It's just going to be astronomical. And if you imagine this going for years, there's not NVMe's big enough on the planet to like hold it. So what do we do? Do we just
doing taxes?
Like, why aren't we programming these blockchains to just toss the history?
Well, you would also have to assume that there's gonna be a lot more zero transaction blocks, right? So you could drop those out of there. And so I would assume that if it's a 6-second block, or if I have 6 1-second blocks, on average, if it's 1 or 2 transactions per every 6 seconds, that most of those blocks are going to be empty. But I think the point, I mean, it's so different than what we talked about before, right? Well, it is different, but it might be along the same lines of what we talked about before, which is at some point you're not going to be able to do it. They're going to like at some point you would have to cut a new Genesis, right? And you have like what Todd has with junoclassic.blockpain.com, which is some sort of archive node, and every 4 or 5 years there is these different history type of nodes that have that before some sort of regen, and then it runs up again, I guess. I don't know.
So there's 2 things they need to like start working on, and one is that you need to be able to aggregate archives. So if you like just recut it on the same network name, or even if the network name doesn't matter, you need to be able to aggregate archives as long as the accounts match up. Because you're going to end up with this situation where people are going to be trying, and people's FYs finish on different dates too. So you can't even have, just cut it every year at the end of the FY and start a new network, because you're going to still have crossover between, Australia's finishes on June and America finishes whenever, and I don't know when England finishes, but
5th of April.
So the point is, you're going to have all this history, right? But it's going to be huge, and no one is maintaining history anymore anyway. People are state syncing. People are using pruned snapshots. So there would only, for each network, there would only be a handful of people keeping history. So I'm pretty sure.
How many Cosmos networks do you think for certain at this point all of the live Cosmos networks actually have complete history?
I don't think so.
I would think so. I would think the foundations would run, like I run 2 for Stargaze, that we have 2 full nodes that we keep history on. But like Stargaze is a pretty easy network, as we haven't gone through that structure. You would think that those groups would want that history, right?
So even the archive nodes and the history nodes, I've tried to query blocks back in the history, and I don't get responses out of them. Like when you try to query the val set specifically from history, like a block a long time ago, you can never get data out of them. It only keeps like the last 5,000 blocks or something for those type of records.
No, isn't that also how that's set up? Because isn't there like a query time, and there's some other things like how long that query could run on that node? Because there's some RPC settings in there. I thought you'd like jack all that way. This is a good Todd question, but I thought you'd jack a lot of those networks, those things up, because some of those queries take some decent amount of kind of transaction hopping to figure out what exactly the state is to be able to return it back to you. So that query time might get timed out or something similar to that.
Yeah. Well, I guarantee like none of the validators are going to be keeping history for these fast blocks, because your performance degrades as you keep more history.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I don't know what the fuck they're going to do about that. But if they're, I think if that's the way they're going to go and they don't care so much about history, they should just toss it. So maybe have like a trailing, you have to set a flag to keep history basically. So if you're like RPCs, you can set a flag to keep it. Yeah. If you're a validator, you only need to know the hash of the last block and the transactions from this block, and then you move on anyway. So, or maybe like, the last 100 blocks, and then just have an open door out the back and off it goes. So people don't have to do all this stuff with pruning and state syncing all the time to try and keep up performance.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if people start moving to things like Akash anyway, where you have to use Omnibus, like to do that in a sense, or like in any kind of reasonable way, you want to use Omnibus, right? And so you're going to get history from the last day plus a snapshot.
Yeah,
and that is increasingly just the way what you see everybody doing. Like if you looked at everybody's snapshots, half of them we polked you, because obviously Polka is like the hardest working snapshot provider in the Cosmos. But I don't know. It's an interesting question. Like, I mean, actually, I guess it's that thing of like, there you go. So Todd
Yeah.
Blockchain just said if it's only got the val set for the last 5,000 blocks, it's probably not a history node. Even if it has all the blocks, history nodes have state for every block.
Okay, so just on that, fun fact, Todd, I was querying off your history nodes. So it's I don't know, it must be maybe the particular query I was using, but I was trying to query the validator set from history, and no Juno history node I could find would give it to me. I didn't try other networks, but anyway, sorry, continue, the fray.
Well, I guess it's just like back to this thing of like there are certain cases like taxes where you very much do need the whole history. But like other than that, it's not really the end of the. I mean, even in a hypothetical world where no history, no archive nodes existed, it's actually maybe not the end of the world for a lot of use cases. Like the integrity at state now is the most important thing,
right?
By a massive, and especially in proof of stake networks, where it's just the validator set right now signing the block that matters, and then the finality on that. Proof of work, obviously different, very different. But proof of stake, I think like the history is fundamentally less important, is my feeling.
So it's less important as far as determining whether the block and the transactions are valid, right? That's
the current state is valid, right?
From that point of view.
Right.
But obviously some people will need history, and if they don't have it, the governments will kick up a stink about this particular.
Well, yeah, sure. But I guess I'm also talking like philosophically. I think we have this attachment to the idea that proof of stake should have that complete. I mean, obviously we need it for tax reasons, but let's ignore that for a second, put that to one side, and go like, we're also attached to this, I think, for conceptual reasons because of familiarity with what came before, and actually, like proof of stake is kind of its own thing. Maybe I mean, it's like very different to like a stream where, if you have like a large streaming data store where it is every single event, or event sourcing where it's every single delta that's ever existed in the data store, and you can reconstruct the state. I mean, actually, event sourcing is a really interesting model to think about, like where everything that's stored is just a delta from previous state to next state, so you can always reconstruct any point in the history, and that's excuse me, that's maybe closer to the UTXO model, right? In fact, isn't that literally what the UTXO model is? Just a lot of deltas.
Completely lost what you're talking about.
I was talking about event sourcing. No,
I don't know.
Database strategy for streaming databases.
Right. Yeah, it's a dev thing. I don't know about that.
Again, what does this have to do with Juno and Kraken?
Yeah. I'm struggling to make the link here.
Juno on Kraken is going to make us all rich. That's not financial advice. But yeah, it's going to be good.
Do you think now that Atom is now irrelevant?
Yes.
I would say a hot. There we go. Alex said it for me, but I would have gone a step further, and yeah. I mean, the dogs to you. Whoops.
The reason that we were on
again, you're always getting doxed, man. It was god,
always getting doxed by collaborators and friends. Anyway, it's like, do you know that drill tweet where it's like, I think the original tweet is actually like turning the dial on, and then in inverted commas racism, and looking around at the crowd for approval, then turning it more. I feel like it's like turning the dial on hot take and then looking around at the crowd for approval before doing more. but Callum didn't really raise the ante. He just kind of let me publicly shoot myself in the head. And then
was it ever relevant?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it was the default on-off ramp, right? Because it's easily transferable. And now
was it ever relevant? Oh my god, there we go. He raised it.
I still think it is purely because this Atom has, of course, got the maturity and the deep pools of liquidity on sexes. So
that is the only thing it has.
Is huge, to be fair.
It has time.
That's exactly. It has time. It's been on all these exchanges for years now. So of course Juno's going to have to wait good few years, and Juno's only on one exchange. And I don't know what Kraken's availability is. I just saw that it's not live in Japan. That was in Kraken's tweet. Unlucky CCN.
Oh, fuck. You're saying all the shit today, man.
You know, you use your real name on the internet. You want to be careful. But yeah, no, yeah, obviously, actually, I think that it is a fair point that the liquidity on Atom is obviously huge, and also their inflation model is very different, and that has, I think, a pretty big implication for its use as an on-off ramp. Juno it does have a problem in that the low supply, I think, does have an impact on its usefulness for an on-off ramp as a general purpose thing, as opposed to just for Juno Noughts. Rama?
Isn't BitGet just derivatives though? Or am I getting it confused with like Bybit or something? There's so many fucking exchanges.
I don't know. I was going to say, Rama says that Juno is on BitGet. I would say BitGet is irrelevant because no one knows what the fuck it is.
I am hearing about it just now.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. BitGet out. That's all I'm saying.
Thanks, Rama. I think it could be on other like degen exchanges too, but you know.
Yeah, well, isn't it on
like degen
MEXC?
exchanges? Did you mean decentralized exchanges?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's what he meant.
Just degen exchanges. Okay, good. Sensational.
So yeah. Anyway, so now that well, put it this way: now that Juno is on Kraken, will you be utilizing Atom for anything in the next month?
Well, so this is the thing. So there's been a lot of talk recently about Atom 2.0, and no one knows what the fuck's going on with that. So I guess maybe that'll come back and bite us all in the arse about it. But
I would argue that we're actually up to more like Atom 5.0 or Atom 6.
Yeah, no. What is it? Is it Cosmos Hub -4 we're currently on? So yeah,
but also the use case changes monthly on Atom, so far as I can tell.
that's what the Twitter accounts will tell me.
There was oh my god, did you see Jabby's talking of spicy?
Oh no, the Neutron one, right? Yeah, right.
Friend the show, Charles Jabster III, known by his handle Jabby. In fact, everybody knows his name's Joe, so I don't know why I called him Charles Jabster III, but whatever. He kind of seems like he could be a Charles. I always thought that about Joe. Anyway, I think he basically like quote tweeted, "You have to correct me on the correct Zoomer language for this, Callum, despite Twitter originally being a millennial thing. I gather it is now a Zoomer thing." So
we do it better.
A quote tweet. So is that a subtweet? No, it's a ratio, isn't it? It's a ratio I'm talking about.
No, I don't mean even ratio. No, so
did you not ratio it?
No, subtweeting is, say if I put a tweet and say you'd annoyed me on how
I reference it without actually mentioning it directly.
I don't at you. I just say like, a founder has just front runned me for 50% of my allocation, where everyone knows it's you, but I haven't just atted you. But yeah, I don't think he hit a ratio, but he quote tweeted something from, can't remember the name of the guy. It was some terror account formerly. Unfortunate, isn't it? But yeah, so he quoted that, and he wrote a good thread on Neutron, to be fair, and I'm nothing against Neutron. He just put what makes Neutron unique, and then he sort of put a thing on Juno, which was completely, everyone took it a bit too hot. Everyone thought he was bashing Juno. No, he wasn't. He was just sort of saying like, oh, this is why this exists, and this is why this is why Juno, like, they can sort of both exist. So, and then Jabby retweeted it and just put, and one of the reasons he listed why Neutron's better is just that Atom is readily available on these exchanges. And so then Jabby retweeted and said, how's that looking now? And then Jabby then also replied quite quickly after saying, I still think it's a good point. And I imagine that's due to the availability of Atom on exchanges.
Yeah. But it's still also funny to see when Jabby gets spicy, because it was
good.
We do enjoy Jabby's hot takes.
I like that tweet. That is the sort of tweet I would write. So
it's so speaking of tweets that you might want to write, Yeah. Actually, no. Well, no, we'll do that in a second. So I actually also want to cover one more thing that is actually technical and is within the purview, if you like, of the actual purpose of the show, which is that we were talking a few weeks ago about we've talked actually several times about a cache and running on a cache and running on a cache, which are obviously both completely different services. But also the limitations of the SDL in terms of validator IP whitelisting, which is a problem for all of us that run remote signers. And I've been talking to the Akash team about this. They don't plan on fixing that within the short term on their roadmap, but SDL changes for that kind of stuff are potentially in the medium term. But this is, again, where we kind of get back to our good friend Tom, that they're going to basically roll out changes in Omnibus that cover simple setups for reverse proxying, so that you can configure your own whitelist using a reverse proxy layer. Because I guess they just don't think enough people have the SDL problem outside of validators. To me, it seems like actually there's probably a lot of use cases where you do want ingress whitelisting. But they are, I think, reasonable to say, well, you can just obviously run a reverse proxy in a container. So, but they're going to make it easy for you to do that. So that's quite cool in terms of those of us that are interested in running validators and infrastructure on a cache in that way, and cool. A cache for that matter. I really need to decide to consistently pronounce it correctly at some point. So that's something I found out really in the last couple of days, which I'm excited about in terms of actually giving it a proper try. And maybe that will also be the thing that pushes us to more seriously start evaluating a Horcrux setup, because we kind of got the boxes lying around at the moment, but we've been doing fine with TMKMS, so I haven't had like a reason to break off from all the various things we're doing and be like, lads, this is the priority this week.
So did you in the end determine that using a cache is economically viable?
Yes, but it's not loads cheaper than AWS in its current form. It is a bit cheaper.
Not loads cheaper than AWS.
That's not really the bar, though, is it?
Yeah, if that's the bar.
Yeah, well, you're talking like the to get a validator running with a reasonable hard disk from a provider that was definitely available. You can see in the video I did, but the bids were about $70 per month. That was what I got to.
It's up
that's not, I mean, that's for what? That's for how many cores and RAM and everything else? Remember?
Enough to run a cache. I think it was like four cores, 32 RAM. I don't know. It wasn't pretty small. It's not going to hack it for Juno, lads.
Right.
It was enough to run a cache. But then a cache is the bit that's the blockchain is actually quite simple compared to quite low footprint, let's say, compared to a Cosmos chain. So that is that. If you were going to run Juno, then I at that point I don't know. But this is kind of back to, I think we talked about this before. This is back to the difficulty of if your product is a marketplace, fixing the supply side of that is like a multi-year roadmap just to bring on enough providers, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of spare supply at the moment in a cache, but the problem with a cache is that I haven't been able to find decent reliability anywhere through a cache. So I've tried a bunch of different servers just for websites, and they keep going down. It's been quite annoying. We ended up having to move the Juno website back to Vercel. Because
I think I saw you mentioning this in one of the chats. Like, so is the Juno website now back on Vercel?
Yeah, because
I didn't realize that.
Well, we lost the provider 3 times in a month, so I don't know if it was like, in a lot of cases we could still access it through the provider's reverse proxy, but and it wasn't a Cloudflare problem. It was something. Sometimes they would just go dark and you couldn't access them through the web at all. Other times, like the reverse proxy would stuff up on them. So I don't know, but we had enough issues with it that we decided to move it off there, because we can't just keep having the main website go down. So But I did find out after I moved it to Vercel that it is quite data heavy.
You mean just the page load and everything else? Well, there's a lot of graphics and movement on
those
that
videos.
site.
Those vidges are pretty big.
Yeah. Now, what is the load on this thing actually?
So it's been back on. So I only put it. I moved it to a new team yesterday on Vercel.
Is this still going through Cloudflare?
Yeah, still through Cloudflare. Yeah.
So Cloudflare's caching some stuff here at the edge too. Vercel, we run our stuff in Vercel a couple different sites. I've been always happy with that.
Vercel's good.
Especially for $20 a month.
Yeah, unless you blow through your data, then not so much. But man, it's the web interface is so confusing on Vercel. I can never find out how to get into the correct settings. Like they got the settings across the top, and then if you click the settings, it's like the team settings. Oh no, now I'm in but now I can't find the analytics. Like,
they go to the individual site and then go to analytics. Yeah, it's a little bit goofy.
Like, yeah, but so you have to go back to the team to get the usage, right? Okay, righto.
Yep.
So we put it up yesterday, and in the last 24 hours, it's used 7.5 gig of bandwidth. Which
it's pretty good.
Wow, that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
is that cached?
I mean, it's at the edge, but yeah.
That's proxied through. So for comparison, I mean, obviously my site's got a lot less requests, but like my website's used 15 meg.
I think it's these. Are those videos back there? What are those things back in these backgrounds?
Yeah, they're videos. Yeah. So for example, the main video there has used 1.8 gig.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
And it's like it's 46 megabytes, I think.
Really? That should be maybe
Jesus.
Anytime it takes 46 megs to load a website, that might be something you want to think about.
Well, I mean,
wait, what does that? Wait, hold on.
You broke the fray.
Wait, what? What? no, but hang on.
Huh?
But are we serving? I'm sorry. Like, wait.
Broke the fray. Completely broke them. Somebody
sorry,
reboot.
The Juno website is serving 46 megabytes.
Well, it's a web
to a mobile browser.
Hang on, I don't know. Let me recheck that.
I see both a MP4 and a WebM on that thing. Let me see if I can pull the WebM size.
How are you seeing this?
Just off the source.
All right.
I'm now going to load it on my phone. To be fair, actually, I've just loaded the website here. The fan is now on in my laptop. The MacBook is taking off. There's something not quite right about this, because this is a powerful. This laptop is basically a web server.
Let me run Lighthouse on it. See what's up. That might be just some work to.
Everyone's laptops just starts taking off.
I guess it's an Intel laptop there.
I can't even find the videos. Oh, vidges. Right.
Vidges.
Oh yeah, it's got to be the videos. Jesus.
What does this have to do with Juno on Kraken?
So, Kraken would have gone to Juno's website to do their due diligence, and that's why it's been 46 gigs or whatever it was, because they've been doing a lot of their due diligence and going back to the JunoNetwork.io site.
It looks like it doesn't play the videos on mobile. We're okay. We haven't killed everybody's data. That really freaked me out for a second there.
Funny enough.
So get this right. So the ecosystem MP4 is 20 meg. The footer MP4 is 12 meg.
Yep.
The Hero MP4 is 10 meg.
Yep.
The Hero 2 WebM is 4 meg.
So when I load it in Lighthouse, I get funny enough, it doesn't do that bad, but it's not awful. It's 82 performance, which isn't bad, but because I think it's prioritizing structure, it's prioritizing paint, right? but the ecosystem WebM is 12.9 megs, and the footer is 5.7 in WebM, which is pretty significant. So the overall page load is 22.8 megs. That could be probably reduced a little bit, I would think. Yeah, find some ways to be able to do that.
You could probably sacrifice some detail in those.
But I think Next, I'm sure this is Next.js behind the scenes, but Next and also Vercel's doing a good job of actually loading items in order and not making it an issue from a viewer perspective. It's just a lot of data behind the scenes.
Yeah, so I'm beginning to wonder if like a cache sort of just turfed the websites because of how much data they were using or something.
Maybe. Well, there's no SLA there, right? And there's no contract there, right? So any provider can just kill it at any time, which is really on you as a content provider that has to monitor the fact if my provider is still serving this data. Is that right?
There's no SLA.
Right. So like whoever's serving that, like, this is too much data, they're just going to shut that thing off, right? They're going to kill that. And you don't really know about that until the site's down.
Yeah, people message you and go, site's down again, and you're like, fuck.
Permissions cuts both ways, I guess.
Yeah.
So
it's exactly right.
Permission to rug.
Nice.
You get.
Usurper, what's Lighthouse? Is that something I don't know about?
That is a Google delivered kind of like page loading and paint and metrics structure by Google that determines and gives some score around load time and best practices, etc.
How does Kingnode score in there?
I can tell you in a second.
Because
it's only a single page, right? So I'm guessing it's gonna be pretty fast.
So while they do that, I think that concludes the conclusion there is that when Omnibus lands its changes, can do more experimentation with the cache. I'm personally looking forward to doing that, but obviously there's some stuff I think which is going to need to happen. I mean, obviously this is the thing. Like I think with overclock, I said this actually. I was talking to Don Kryptonium earlier. I have absolutely no problem believing that overclock have the technical chops to pull off everything they need to make all of the tech work for a cache. I think the hard thing for them is going to be actually finding that supply and working out how things like Usurper was saying, no SLA, cool, can't run any critical infrastructure on it. How do you work out that stuff in a marketplace where you aren't going to be able to get an SLA, but you can enforce economic incentives? What is the mechanism design there to make it actually viable for you as an infrastructure provider who needs high availability to have faith in that system, whilst it's still being cheaper than AWS, which is honestly not that expensive in the grander scheme of things?
Yeah, I mean, my point is, it's early. It'll grow. That structure will occur over time. I also don't know kind of early on if it's a requirement that it needs to be cheaper. Like there's some trade-offs there in terms of decentralization and not paying for one provider. Like it's kind of like early days of electric cars. Like it was always like a measurement of, but is it cheaper than gas? Well, maybe it's not. Like maybe is that the yardstick that we're using here, like at least initially and over time, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not so concerned if it's exactly cheaper. It was more expensive than there's a lot of talk about how cheap it is. And I think your data showed that it's not, costs are costs. And so it wasn't 100% cheaper or something similar to that. Like it was cheaper than AWS, but it still was pretty close. And so I don't know if price is the only benefit to this, right? So I think you might be paying for some other areas as well.
Yeah, it's trade-offs, aren't there? So we've got Callum on here. Kind of on the post pretense. So normally Callum would be.
I love validators. I love running nodes. I love running all my nodes on a cache. I love it.
So to be fair, Callum does currently run 100% of his nodes on a cache.
Yeah. 100% of my nodes are on a cache, and they have an 100% uptime on all the chains I run nodes on.
So we wanted to pick your brains, Callum, on how you've got across every chain that Callum validates, he's got 100% uptime, and he's never missed a block. So
I have never in my lifetime missed a block. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So we saw his tweet on Twitter, and we were like, we've got to get him on to explain how he's done that. So Callum, do you want to explain your magical strategy?
Don't run nodes.
That's a good way to know the spot.
Right? You obviously
yeah. But I've never missed a block locally because it's all very in a contained environment. So I've run a Juno node before.
One of one.
Yeah, the perfect network, one validator.
Did you just like delegate a bunch of Juno to yourself just to like make you number one on the list?
Of one.
That's literally how local Juno works.
Yeah, that literally is how it comes set up for you.
Yeah. You can tell Noel's never done any local development. He doesn't know that. It's just like
this is all done for you. Yeah.
You get a jaunty little thing where it provisions you the thing, and then it spins up the node in Docker, and then you get the logs where it's like this is a validator, and then 1 block, 2 block.
Yeah, it's literally that easy, guys. I don't know what you guys are complaining about. I
watched your tutorial on it on the internet, which was entirely too long when you can just like connect your thing to the Juno testnet. I'm confused.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it works both ways. You see, banter works for both ways, guys.
Yeah, I mean, but you also weren't awake to troll when we were actually doing the podcast, so no dice.
That would have been funnier in the live chat, by the way.
What's that? Oh, in your man, it's 3 a.m. I'm not getting up at 3 a.m. for that.
What isn't it 3 a.m. for you now?
Yeah. Shouldn't you be doing chain upgrades? Come on now.
Yeah, I simply didn't have any spare time at 3 a.m.
Did say have another update? Yeah, okay, that excuse works all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. No, seriously, what time is that though? UTC.
We do it like 3. It's either like 3 or 4 UTC or 2. Like it changes. I think we varied a little bit. It's like 3, 2, 4 UTC. One of those times.
That's pretty early for me. It's like
it's like every other week, every 3 weeks.
Pretty inconsistent is what I'm hearing.
Got to work around your holidays, right? You guys are.
Yeah. That's the only way I've missed blocks, you could say.
Yeah, just all those holidays
supposed to
be
in
the way.
It's not like King Nodes, which is every week at 2100 UTC on Wednesdays. Rain, hail, or shine, even if we have absolutely fucking nothing to talk about.
to be fair, I think you are actually the only person that's maybe made almost. Actually, no, I don't think you have made every episode of Gaming Nodes, have you? I don't think
he's been lagging. He's been lagging most of the time, so it's the Aussie internet.
I think I've missed one. Maybe.
Really? That's it?
Yeah, I've missed 3.
I've missed a couple. Yeah.
Actually, I don't think I have missed one.
I've missed 20.
Yeah, to be fair, Callum's been the most inconsistent.
I'm actually one of the founders, by the way, guys. I've just not shown up for the 20
shadow. You just shadow banned him.
Nothing have been every single one. I'm the only one who's been in every single one. I'm putting that out there. I could be.
Yeah,
wrong.
I think you've been in every single one, but I think you've like dropped like a few times, but you've been in every single one. Whereas I think Jabby kind of dipped after the first, whenever that was.
After the first 2.
After the early drama, Jabby was like, "This is actually too much.
I want this.
I'm kind of done with this."
At least
I've had to resort to the conjugal cell to get the good internet, though. So the government always.
Yeah. You're in isolation. That's the trade-off for good internet.
Your Mohican has made some sort of appearance on at least 21 episodes.
Yeah. Wait, what one did Usurper miss?
I've missed a few.
Oh.
Usurper has a life and holidays and other obligations.
It's kids or something else that always comes up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So since there were 79 minutes in, can we talk a little bit about Howl? Since you're both here and only got 10 minutes left. Like, should we? People who have listened this far, who can't be very large number.
We could
is there anything you want to gift the people who have gone through 79 minutes of Roundabout / Kraken / whatever else type of conversation we've had?
I'm going to give you the keys to the Lamborghini.
What do you
Never
got?
gets old.
Never gets old.
Yeah, I mean, this
an
isn't
update.
this isn't the first application, I guess, that I've launched on Juno. So I kind of knew that it would be, even on testnet, would be a bit nuts. Like, how's your day been, Callum?
Well, you decided to dip for an interview straight after launching it. You're like, yeah, I'm going to tweet about it, and then
Okay,
go for an interview
gotta go.
5 minutes after. So this is the sort. He dropped the tweet. 5 minutes later, he was in a call. So yeah, but no, it was actually fine. Like, it wasn't bad. Just I was actually kind of blown away by the amount of people that are willing to play around with something. Like, in a way, that everyone's been quite nice about it. We've had a few smaller issues, some good feedback already, to be fair, and just got chaotic really quickly. Like, because we've probably had like quite a few, peaks in interest, then dips, then peaks, because of just how our communication is as a project. So yeah, everyone seems to. Then everyone, like, we're getting a bunch of people with loads of questions. The FAQ has already built up loads because we're getting asked a lot the same thing.
Mhm.
But it is what it is, and yeah, it's quite exciting. It's weird to see people play around with something that you've been exposed to for like 2 months and just kind of just been there, and you're like, I'm used to this, and then they're like, oh, how do you do this? This doesn't make sense. You're like, no, it's just this, but it doesn't make sense to them. So yeah.
Can I actually use this? Is this usable?
Yeah, maybe not.
That's subjective, isn't it?
But yeah, that's kind of a big question.
I missed the announcement because I was probably sleeping.
Yeah.
And you're on Don Kryptonium as well with your man.
I've had a long day.
It's a long day.
What made you look good in the
Yeah, he did you a nice one with the image he used for you.
He asked for an image, and I don't even have it on this. I don't have it on the laptop, but I sent him one that I made up. It's basically just me, but with a dunce cap on, which was my response to somebody. There was, I can't remember who it was. Like, there's some. It was some fucking shit project or something that basically
was it for the Terra Developer Fund?
I love Don's hero images. Always crack me up. Like, I love them.
Yeah, he basically, I think, clipped that straight out of Game of Nodes.
I don't know.
I sent him a picture, and he was just like, "That picture's rubbish. I'm just gonna clip one out of Game of Nodes, basically." But yeah, there was like some, when the testnet halted, the mainnet halted on upgrade, and we had to just patch it because of the order of upgrades. There was basically, I can't remember what it was, that somebody came out of the woodwork from a project or a chain or something, and it was given a shit about it. It was like, oh, anybody could have tested for this. We found it on our testnet.
I know the project you're bringing up. Are you not?
Yeah, and I was basically like, I was not going to engage with it, and then I think in the end I basically like made a Photoshop myself in a dunce hat, and I was like, "You fucking happy?" or something like that, and then be like, "Yeah, good one, you fucking new clever now," and then I deleted the tweet because I was like, "It's actually quite childish." But I have the image of me in a dunce hat lying around on my hard drive, so I sent it to Don, and he was just like, "Be serious." Which is when you know. That's when you know, like, because Don is not a serious guy. So like, when he's going like, "Come on, man, take this a little bit seriously."
Are you sure?
I jumped on there with Don the other day and literally talked about Hong Kong for like half an hour while I was eating a steak. I was like,
okay. We've talked about British history for about half an hour of this one, so we got to
like us. He sometimes takes the first 50 minutes to actually get to the subject, but I don't think that's a stone we can throw from our glass house.
No, we're doing it again. We're literally doing it again right now.
Yeah, he's asked me a few times. I'm like, I don't know if I have anything really to talk about. And then you guys have paved that goat path of having no topics to have good conversation. So yeah, I feel pretty good about
sometimes.
You don't need to have an agenda to have a good time.
I know that, but his podcast seems like a real one. It seems different than this one. I don't know. It's slightly different in some sort of way.
Oh yeah,
I
we've all
mean,
been on it, us three, other than
yeah, I
Usurper,
think
yeah.
Usurper, you do have to go on it now. Otherwise, you know,
I know.
you are like Billy
I
No
know.
Friends. Essentially,
Don,
on
reach
this.
out. Let's go. So, all right. So back to Howl. What? Give a for folks who don't understand what it is or not been playing with it all day today or going to listen to this. Give a 120-second overview of what you guys are trying to build. Or what you were building. I shouldn't say try to. That's not.
Yeah.
That's a bad phrase. What you are building and what you have built. I should say that.
Right. So now that Howl is live, it is a microblogging platform of 140 characters that you can write, and using the Howl token, you can stake to staking on a post, and basically the delegator gets 60% of the inflation. The author of the post you delegated to gets 20% of the inflation, 10% of which goes to the community DAO, and 10% of which goes to the dev fund, which is sort of very similar to the community tax on a Cosmos SDK chain. And yeah, so basically it's just this sort of market model, which the Frey explained really well in Don's podcast, about how it creates this market of the authors and the delegators sort of, you know, buying and selling Howl to support each other and building this market very naturally. But basically, you can support smaller creators you like. It also has a Patreon model built in. It's just, yeah, it's awesome. Come check it out. Come play with it. Come break it. You might get rewarded.
And also, I guess it's worth mentioning, there's a couple of things we can't build until mainnet, because so it doesn't work on mobile yet because Kepler Mobile doesn't work for what we need for testnet applications. So that will come. We have like a version 1.1, which is like the things that we can do after mainnet. And there's like three major things in that. One is mobile support. 2 is a bridge to Twitter. So essentially just like posting from Howl to Twitter to duplicate it. So you can just stay in one rather than posting to the other. So it's just going to kind of repost it to Twitter. And then the third one, and this is the one that I'm probably most excited about actually, is the long form posts. So the kind of actual like long form blog posts, because we actually started building this kind of more back to front. Like the long form was what we were doing first, but then you needed replies and comments and stuff, and especially because obviously Callum's involved in DAO. Like replying to at the moment you can't really comment on DAO on proposals and things like that, and it was kind of that sort of use case, like the replies to a long form blog post and the replies to like DAO proposals, that kind of kicked us in the direction of doing that bit first, like the shorter posts. And also the fact that you need IPFS to do the longer stuff. So we almost need to launch, essentially see if people use it, see if there's any money in the bank, and then we can afford to buy some fuck off hets in the boxes and run IPFS nodes and a reverse proxy and build out some infrastructure around the stuff we need to run the long form blogging stuff, which we've kind of won't take us long to. It's kind of already partly implemented in various bits and pieces. So
yes, on chain it's there. On chain it's there, but of course we don't actually run the infrastructure to support it. So yeah,
we need to build the UI for it basically. So, but I'm pretty excited about the blogging thing, if I'm honest. That's kind of cool.
Can you please clarify for the viewers, Howl is its own blockchain or Howl is built on Juno?
So yeah, it's its own. No, I was about to say the completely wrong thing. It's a set of contracts on Juno. Okay. So it's written in CosmWasm. It's deployed on Juno. That means you have to use Juno for the gas fees.
Right.
And
it's
that's probably the
Juno testnet.
Yeah, it's currently on Uni 3, the Juno testnet.
And it's currently broken Uni 3, or
we broke Juno tools.
So I've been tweeting. I've tweeted
by the way, alpha.howl.social is the address.
So I've tweeted a couple. We have DOSed multiple things today, completely unintentionally. So firstly, we DOSed the Juno faucet for testnet, and I've been posting some good memes about that today. And then secondly, we DOSed Juno tools testnet because of the amount of requests that people were making. So I did the Bart Simpson chalkboard meme but he's just writing, "I will not DOS Juno tools," or "I will not DOS the Juno faucet." So yeah, we broke a lot of stuff today, but not ours.
Can we? I mean, there's a couple Uni 3 validators on this podcast, right? Can we provide some infrastructure so you get off those types of things, or is there other ways to be able to do that we can be able to provide some additional infrastructure for that structure?
Yeah, so we had some. I remember Pubmos quite early on in our testing actually recommended some. They also offered to run some infrastructure. So I guess it's just something we kind of need to sort out, Frey, don't we? We need to. Have we done actually any analysis on how heavy we're hitting RPCs? Because I bet we are hitting them very heavily.
We're probably hitting them pretty heavily. I mean, I think there's a whole bunch of stuff that we've talked about a lot on here about infrastructure DAOs and all that other kind of stuff. And I think Howl is an interesting use case, because other than maybe Junior Swap, I don't think there's another smart contract on other than maybe Fortis. Fortis was a fucker for RPC calls as well. That's going to be doing the kind of numbers and the kind of hits that Howl might be if people even slightly get into it. And I think when going all the way back to the very first idea of Howl, which was just like, okay, what is the most simple thing you can do, like that's going to basically break CosmWasm, was my original thought. And it was basically like blog platform or Twitter clone are the two quickest ways to evaluate whether something, a database, a UI technology, whatever, is actually usable for a consumer use case. That was like in Lisbon last year. So it's taken a long time to have time to work on this, to find other people that are interested in working on it, and to build this out. I mean, we've been working on it since February, March. So it's like 5 months of work to even get to an MVP, and see if we can, break CosmWasm basically. But assuming we don't actually break the underlying runtime, we're going to have to Howl itself is going to have to provide infrastructure. That's the only reasonable thing to do. And the Howl DAO can do that. And that's also partly where my interest in Akash and all that stuff is coming from at the moment as well. I'm kind of thinking longer term that, the Howl DAO is going to need to pay for some of that stuff, or, longer term, it becomes its own chain and then problem solved within its own marketplace. It pays for itself out of its own native token, purely out of inflation or whatever. And actually, thinking really long term, the sort of stuff you might want to do with the ownership model for something like this to make it actually meaningfully decentralized, it probably should be its own chain. And I don't know that it would be a Cosmos chain. I know that it would have to have CosmWasm, and it would want, I think we'd want it to have IBC, but whether it would have the SDK or not is moot. It depends where the development of the SDK goes.
Yeah, to get down to, you want to get to 1 second block times? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, 1 second block times.
It would be beneficial in this context, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah.
It would. I know. I saw that, like, just in posting and messing around a little bit. Like, I mean, you have the standard kind of like, I'm waiting for a block to post type structure, right? Plus, I was using a ledger, so my right thumb is totally worn down to a nub, because every single thing, I'm 22 hits to be able to get to that point. That's not really the best hardware wallet structure.
Yeah. Well, so
I would suggest maybe
AS Weaver has done a bunch of stuff on essentially like the bit that does the Patreon mechanic, HowPay, is kind of like the beginnings of an actual wallet abstraction and an account abstraction. Yeah. And Weaver's done a lot of thinking and built a proof of concept, which, like, Callum can probably tell you about.
Yeah, Weaver's done some great stuff. I think actually the proof of concept of that was prior to the pay, like the subscription model. So he had a really cool proof
he's already
of concept
written it, but we've figured we can't throw loads and loads and loads.
Yeah,
of
we
stuff
can't, because it'll be very and it's got to build up trust, right? Like, I understand why someone with this system, when I explained to it, I'd understand why people are a bit hesitant. It's like, whoa, like, who am I trusting here? So he built a very small, and it's live on the testnet right now, a smart contract where you can, or is it? I think it's using AuthZ actually in its authorizations contract, where you can authorize this contract, you deposit Juno in, and it can make the gas payments for you. So you don't have to click the Kepler pop-up. You just have to keep this thing topped up. So I could top it up with 10 Juno and forget about it probably for a couple months before
That's
it
cool.
even, because of just how gas on Juno works, it's like 0.01 Juno. So
Right.
yeah, and it just means you don't have to go approve. It just goes, and you only have to do one big top up, which is exactly, or like whatever top up you're feeling comfortable doing. For some people that might be 1, for some it might be 5. But yeah, that's so we've got a lot of sort of MVPs like that actually behind the scene, all from Weaver, who's amazing and is very underrated as a
well,
Juno
also to be
developer.
fair, there's another thing that's behind the scenes, which is the path controller contract, which Callum wrote, which is quite important to like if you're a DAO and you want to mint arbitrary subpaths for stuff in your project, or if you're a wallet and you want to provide free names for your users or something like that, you need Callum's contract, where you basically buy a root name, send it to that contract, and then the contract can essentially control it for you. So there's actually there's a lot of different bits and pieces that we have knocking around for roadmap items. But I think it all depends on whether people actually use it, right?
Yeah,
First.
we have these floating pieces that we want to put in the puzzle, but in what order depends on what people want.
Yeah.
So yeah, ideally we'd want. I've already seen a few suggestions where it's like, oh, I don't really like having to approve TXs each time.
Yeah.
And it's like, we've got a POC solution for that. We've also got a solution for onboarding, another one which we haven't written any of the code for, but it will be possible. We have to again wait until HAL goes live for trading, but setting where HAL can be used for gas. So if someone just gets sent HAL, no Juno on chain, even though I think that's technically impossible because the account needs to be active. But if they don't have Juno for gas, we could allow HAL for gas using this other contract, and they're similar to the authorizations module, where it has a Juno balance which is funded by us, but it will use the HAL token and Juno swap to try and keep the level. It'll always try and come back to like 10 Juno. So it always has 10 Juno is enough for, let's say, 1,000 transactions. It'll always try and go to that target 10 Juno eventually. And yeah, that creates some sell pressure for HAL token, but I don't think it would be a problem, really. Like the pressure would probably be quite minimal.
I mean, I used it for probably 2-3 hours today, and I mean for some of you guys that launched today, like I didn't come across any blockers. Like there was nothing there that didn't work. Like everything kind of worked as it was there. I had a lot of functionality I wanted, right? Like there was a lot of things that were like either confusing or like just trying to understand how you guys are thinking through it or those types of things. But that's natural, right? But everything, like for something you guys just launched today, I thought it was extremely put together. Like everything just worked. You know what I mean?
So do I need HAL to be able to post?
No. So you could earn HAL by writing a good post, which is something I quite like. I quite like that as a model, as in a way of onboarding people. You don't need.
I mean, Callum's going to be rich off of this model, so.
I've wasted too many bangers on this podcast, guys. You're going to have to pay me.
It's my turn.
Finally, the shit posting pays off. He's been training for this for many years.
How do I make money by shit posting?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually so it's also worth saying there are going to be some challenges next week to break HAL, and there are rewards in HAL which will be applied on mainnet to be gained for breaking it. And it's going to be stuff like become a HAL whale, accrue the most subscribers, stuff like that. Basically stuff where
form a hostile takeover, like as in literally rug the DAO will be an objective.
If somebody rugs the DAO, we'll be very impressed. We have talked about it quite a bit. I think we know of a few vulnerabilities that if you worked it out and got organized with some other people, you could probably rug the DAO. That would be funny. But we're going to publish some of these sort of on probably Monday, and then see whether HAL is still standing on Tuesday. It'd be interesting to see how quickly people can work out ways of gaming the system. Because we obviously have some moderation and stuff in place, but it's quite rudimentary at the moment. So, that's why we kind of want to incentivize people to break it, because it's we obviously are going to do stuff around, you know, maybe traditional auditing, but at the same time, like bugs and code integrity are one thing, and people using the system that you design the incentives wrong on is like totally another. And I think we're more concerned about the latter case at the moment, which is probably a false sense of confidence from the Rust compiler. I don't know.
Yeah, agreed.
Null's just zoned out into the middle distance, so
he's using HAL right now. He's logged
messing
in.
with it. Mm-hmm.
I'm just playing around with HAL.
There you go.
And, you know, something that was really evident to me is that you have to buy a DENS address to fucking use it.
Well, if you were listening, Null, you would know that eventually my contract can fix that and provide it for free. If we go that way.
Freezies.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just no, I mean, it's good. It's fucking, you know, different integration model to pump up those returns on the DENS. It's like,
yeah. Well, I mean, like,
super clean, super fast too. Like at the moment,
it is.
Yeah, well, it's probably because everybody's finished DOSing Juno tools and they're kind of down the RPCs back up.
That bloody that Charlim though, fucking hell.
No, it's old school. Twitter used to be 140. So
yeah,
I like it. Yep, I'm okay with that.
I like 255 better. Like 255.
Oh, what, like a byte? Yeah. Okay, yeah. I can see that. I can see the appeal of that, but it's too late now. We've committed to 140.
Yeah,
for life, man.
Too late.
I don't know. Raise a ticket. Maybe we can argue about it. Like,
are you gonna put functionality here to, like, you know, do tweet storms?
Yeah. So yeah, like threads. So that's something I would quite like, because that would be a cool way for, before we get long form, a way a lot of people on sort of Cosmos Twitter, or even crypto Twitter in general, you know, they write a thread. So that's definitely something I want to support.
So yeah, we do. So we do have threads and replies, but at the moment they're kind of not grouped together in the UI. So the question we have is like whether we should recursively like always be grouping those together, or whether we should, because obviously if this is successful in any way, we're going to have to like build out some infrastructure, build out some indexing and stuff, and then we can kind of arbitrarily decide how to sort of make that work. And that's that kind of secondary layer of stuff. You know, do we just throw all our threads in there? Is the question, you know, and just have that served out for secondary thing. I don't know. We'll kind of cross those bridges when we come to them, I guess. All the data exists, and the machinery, if you like, to make threads totally works already. That's just the replies, just a thread of replies, same as Twitter. How it's displayed is different at the moment because we don't really have threads.
We sort of need to follow the linked list.
Yeah.
The graph is perfect for our, and even like subquery or anything. All of those indexing solutions are literally perfect for how we can just, you know, persist writes to chain, as in the only time you'd interact with a chain ideally would be when you're writing a post, and then it would all be done through this GraphQL thing. Yeah. Unless I'm really overselling subquery, but I think that's sort of the ideal model, right?
I think so too.
Perfect.
Yeah, they've been chasing us a little bit about when we go live, are we going to use subquery? And the answer is probably
yes.
The answer is probably, unless nobody uses HAL, in which case then
on to the next project.
I would honestly, but that piece I would kind of think would be part of MVP. Like it'd be difficult to launch without that querying. Like I can't even like find people. I was trying to find you guys, but I can't do that until I either find a post that you guys are in or something similar to that. So I don't know how you would launch without that, because I don't think that's
well, we actually the search thing, we sort of all thought that the other one, or one of the other ones, had actually just implemented it. There is a ticket that's bit. I think it's the second ticket.
It's like from March. It's like from March, which is like a month after we started properly developing.
Yeah, and it gives you an idea of like how kind of tunnel vision sometimes we have been on this. Is that we're just like literally, I think today I was just like, hang on lads, I can't find the search bar. And then Callum was like, there is no search bar, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I saw a search bar, and Callum's like, there is no search bar, and I was like, I was like, but we have the endpoint to do search. It's like, yeah, but there is no search bar. I'm like, okay, well, I'll make a ticket for it. And I made a ticket. And Callum was like, "There's already a ticket for the search bar." And I was like, "Fuck's sake, this is probably
It's on
got
like
my
page
face
2
on
of
it as
the
well."
yeah. It's
Probably
page
literally
2
got
of
my
the
face on
issues.
it.
But yeah, so yeah,
Well,
it's just that pattern matching on blockchain is hard because it's impossible.
Sure.
So we couldn't do like, you know, on Twitter where if I typed CAL, you would get like me and then, you know, all of my burner accounts that I use to pump up impressions on my posts. But yeah, so currently the very basic search implementation would be if it's an exact match, show it. Which is exactly how Dens works. If you go on Dens and you go to register a name, that's how you can check if it's taken.
But you're doing some search on the hashtag, right? So there's something there.
Yeah, but that's only an exact match as well, I'm fairly certain. That should be. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
you could just hashtag everything.
You could hashtag your name and whatever else. Yeah. I mean, the core of it is the structure around being able to stake on a post, and that's pretty awesome.
At the center of it is this model where you know, you as a content consumer get rewarded, but also the content you're consuming gets rewarded, which is where it's very, very different. And I've been on a few things now where I've said it's for a lot of people who don't have the largest following. You know, they're not big enough to get a Condex sponsorship, but they're big enough to pull in some impressions. They can get some rewards on how, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. I think, I mean, that's where this fits in, which is like kind of this great flattening of bring it down to content and value, right? And being able to reward that. I think that's awesome. And
really curating your feed around that. And we've also got some more stuff on sort of grouping and having custom feeds, or you can even separate your feeds based on aliases. You could have your own aliases, and that could be your each feed.
Wait. Sorry, can you just say that again? You can say that word again.
Aliases.
There you go. All right.
Aliases.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
You had the emphasis. You had the emphasis on the wrong.
I just feel like there was a bit of a glitch in the matrix there, and I was like, "Am I the only one hearing this?"
Never coming on again.
What does this report post do? Where the fuck does that go?
Oh, that goes to the moderator. So, do you want me to ban someone? But I won't be a moderator on mainnet. I've just made myself a moderator for testing.
Are we moderators on testnet?
Moderator?
I am. I made a multi-sig proposal to make myself a moderator just so I could see if it was working.
So am I banned already then? Am I banned from Hal? Did you do that?
Oh, yeah. I've taken your money. Don't worry, it's mine now.
How do I stake a post? I can't see the link.
The heart. The heart.
Oh, is that it? You just press the heart. Oh,
yeah, what I didn't pick up, which obviously these guys helped me out with, it's not like on Twitter you just like hit a like and you have 490 likes, but it could be 490 likes from like one person, right? So
yeah,
it's
like
the amount
one
stake
how
there
is one like,
right? So you can stake. So I could stake all of my how on something that you have,
and you'd have 500 likes or whatever,
right?
Yeah, and it's maybe I should say it's one howl at one arbitrary point of time is the like, because your likes will keep on increasing because your like will expire. Because a like in howl, which is a stake, is you lock up somehow for an amount of epochs, which is currently 24 hours on testnet, and then it comes back to you. So you have to keep on coming back.
And I think in mainnet you guys are talking about like 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah. So
like an unstake over 2 weeks.
On testnet, it's currently an epoch is an hour, so you get rewards every hour, and the epochs end after 24, so it's a day. Whereas on mainnet, we'd do an epoch is a day, 14 epochs, which is 2 weeks. And that is subject to change still. We could easily change it. That's all configurable.
Imagine this. Imagine if your like button was actually staking Juno and it was back-ended by a liquid staking contract.
I don't want a headache.
Those are all words I understand, but that was too degen for me. I just blue screened.
So what we're going to be introducing is a how derivative called a woo.
It's going to be on Comdex.
and it's going to be a stable coin, which is tied to the value of treats. Okay.
Oh,
And
Tied to the value of carbon.
And it's algorithmically pegged to treats through some mint and burn mechanism.
To be fair, maybe we should actually have 2 tokens in HAL just so that we could claim it's a stable coin. And then somebody would be like, there's literally nothing stable about this design. It would be like, no, there's 2 coins. There's 2 coins. They have a relationship. It's actually very complicated math. It's actually very
the graphs
complicated.
was clearly trending down.
Yeah, we just
A
have
plus
that.
Y equals 0.
We
Complicated
just have
math.
these two stable coins that are.
It's like a double helix.
Yeah, it's like the Cobra's head from. It's Top Gun again. What is the fuck is wrong with me today? The new Top Gun thing.
That's
There's a thing
Karate
where-
Kid, Cobra.
Yeah, whatever. Viper, Cobra, whatever. Then they give the twizzle. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. They go towards the ground, the 2 things. And
yeah, it's Top Gun. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you already showed.